The docking ring of Halcyon Station glowed with soft blue light as delegates from a dozen species waited in tense silence. Cameras hovered. Translators whispered. History was about to happen, whether anyone felt ready or not. Ethan Cross stood very still at the center of the chamber. He wore a simple human formal uniform, no medals, no weapons. That had been a condition. Humans were still new to the wider galaxy, and many species found their soldiers unsettling. Ethan was not tall by galactic standards. He was not strong compared to most aliens in the room. What he was, however, was calm. Across from him stood Lady Siren of the Virelian Concord. She was taller than Ethan, her posture straight, her silver-blue skin marked with faint luminous lines that shifted with her breathing. Her eyes, large and dark, reflected the station lights like distant stars. She wore the ceremonial mantle of her house, ancient and heavy with meaning. This was not a wedding of love. It was a treaty given flesh. When the final words were spoken and the binding seals confirmed, a low chime echoed through the chamber. The translators announced the result in every known language. The bond is complete. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some delegates looked curious. Others looked offended. A few looked amused. Ethan let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Siren turned to face him fully. According to her people's customs, they were now bound in all ways that mattered. She studied him with open interest, not cold judgment. That alone surprised him. They were escorted from the chamber to a private habitation suite prepared for bonded pairs. The doors sealed behind them with a quiet hum. For the first time since stepping onto the station, they were alone. The room was large and neutral, designed to be acceptable to many species. Soft lighting, adjustable gravity, 2 seating platforms, a wide viewport showing the slow drift of stars. Ethan remained standing, unsure of what protocol applied now. He had studied the briefings, but no briefing truly prepared a person for this moment. Siren tilted her head slightly, observing him. Her luminous markings pulsed once, then settled. "You are tense," she said gently. "Is this space unsuitable?" "No," Ethan replied quickly. "It's fine, I'm just thinking." "That is acceptable," she said. "I'm also thinking." She moved closer, her steps unhurried. There was no threat in her posture, only curiosity and a strange, careful respect. "You are now mine," Siren said matter-of-factly, "and I am yours." Ethan swallowed. The words sounded heavier out loud. Before he could respond, she continued, her tone sincere and direct. "I am yours," she said again, then paused. "Which position do you want?" The words hung in the air. Ethan's mind stopped working for a brief, terrifying second. His face flushed. His thoughts raced through everything humans meant by that word, none of which felt appropriate, diplomatic, or survivable. Every warning from command screamed in his head at once. He started, then stopped. Siren frowned slightly, the light patterns on her skin shifting to a questioning hue. "Have I misspoken?" she asked. "The translators show no error." "No, it's not that," Ethan said carefully. He took a slow breath, forcing himself to calm down. "Panic would help no one. I think our cultures use that word differently." Her eyes widened just a little. "Explain." Ethan gestured vaguely, choosing his words with extreme care. In human languages, that question can sometimes mean something very personal, physical. Siren froze. Then very slowly, her luminous markings flared bright violet. "Oh," she said. For a moment, Ethan feared he had offended her beyond repair. Then she let out a soft sound that the translator hesitated before rendering as laughter. "That would be a grave misunderstanding," she said. "No, I meant your position in our bond, your role, your stance before others, how you wish to stand beside me." Relief washed through Ethan so strongly his knees almost gave out. "Right," he said. "Yes. That makes much more sense." "I apologize," Siren said, surprisingly earnest. "Your people's language is flexible." "That's one way to put it," Ethan replied, a faint smile breaking through his nerves. She gestured to one of the seating platforms and they both sat. The distance between them felt deliberate, respectful. In my culture, Siren explained, a bonded pair must decide their positions early. One may take the dominant public role. One may take the guiding role. Some choose protection. Others choose command. The choice defines how the galaxy will see us. Ethan listened carefully. This was not about intimacy. This was about power, perception, and survival. Most expect you to choose to stand behind me, she continued. Humans are considered fragile, new, politically light. Ethan nodded. He had heard worse in the briefings. But I did not request this bond for appearances alone, Siren said. I studied your species, your history. You endure, you adapt, you survive things that should erase you. She looked directly at him. So I ask again, she said more softly now. Which position do you want? Ethan did not answer right away. He thought of Earth, of commanders who spoke loudly and fell quickly, of quiet people who held things together while chaos burned around them, of humans surviving not because they were strongest but because they refused to quit. Finally, he met her gaze. I don't want to rule you, he said, and I don't want to hide behind you. Siren listened without interrupting. I want to stand with you, Ethan continued. As support when you need it, as a voice when things are unclear. I'll take the position of strategist if your culture allows it. I'll help us see dangers early and avoid fights we don't need. The room was silent. Siren's markings shifted slowly, cycling through colors the translator struggled to name. That is unexpected, she said at last. Most would choose dominance or submission. I don't think either works for us, Ethan replied. Not if this bond is going to last. She studied him for a long moment. Then she inclined her head. Very well, she said. You shall be the one who stands slightly to my side, not behind and not before. The galaxy will find that confusing. Ethan smiled faintly. Humans are good at that. Later that cycle, word spread through Halcyon Station. The bonded alien noble had not placed her human mate beneath her, nor had the human attempted to claim authority beyond his station. Whispers followed them through corridors. Some laughed. Some watched more closely than before. Ethan felt the weight of it, but he did not regret his choice. As the station lights dimmed to simulate night, Siren stood beside him at the viewport. Stars drifted silently beyond the glass. You did not choose the safest position, she said. No, Ethan agreed, but it's the honest one. She considered that, then nodded once. Then we will see, she said, what the galaxy does with honesty. And somewhere beyond the station, forces already in motion began to turn their attention toward the human who had chosen to stand beside an alien noble, and the bond that might quietly change everything. Halcyon Station did not sleep, but it changed its rhythm. Lights softened. Corridors grew quieter, patrols shifted, and with every cycle that passed, more eyes followed Ethan and Siren wherever they went. They walked side by side through the inner ring, not touching, not distant either. To many species, that alone was strange. Bonded pairs usually displayed clear dominance signals, a step ahead, a lowered head, a protective wing or claw. They showed none of that. Whispers followed them like shadows. The human did not kneel. She did not command him. Is the bond unstable? Siren heard the whispers. Her senses were sharp, tuned by years of court life. Ethan heard fewer words, but he felt the weight of attention all the same. You are becoming a subject of debate, she said quietly as they entered a lift capsule. That bad? Ethan asked. That interesting, she corrected. The lift doors closed, sealing them in a transparent column that slid upward through the station's spine. Stars streaked slowly behind them. In my people's courts, Siren continued, interest often comes before challenge. Ethan nodded. That matches human politics too, she glanced at him. You speak as one who has observed power closely. I've been near it, Ethan said. Not in charge, just close enough to see the mistakes. That earned a thoughtful pause from her. Their destination was a council annex, a place where secondary meetings happened away from the main chamber. Siren had been summoned. Ethan had not, but she had insisted he attend. When the doors opened, several alien delegates were already waiting. Tall, scaled, furred, winged, representatives of species older and stronger than humanity. Conversation stopped when they saw Ethan. One of them, a thick-bodied Korth elder with stone-like skin, spoke first. "Lady Siren," he rumbled. "We did not expect your bonded human to attend." "You did not forbid it," she replied calmly. The elder's heavy eyes shifted to Ethan. "Does he speak for you?" Ethan resisted the urge to answer. This was not his moment. Siren did. "He stands with me," she said. "When I choose to hear him, he speaks. When I do not, he observes." The elder snorted. "A strange position." "Yes," she agreed. "You are not required to like it." A faint ripple of amusement passed through the room. The meeting began: trade routes, security patrols, disputes along neutral borders. Ethan listened closely, saying nothing. Patterns formed quickly in his mind. The same arguments looping. The same blind spots ignored. He noticed how each species protected its pride even at the cost of logic. How no one wanted to yield first. How problems were delayed instead of solved. At one point, a dispute grew heated. Voices rose. Tails lashed. One delegate threatened to withdraw patrol support from a vulnerable corridor. That corridor, Ethan realized, connected 3 civilian habitats. He leaned slightly toward Siren and spoke quietly. "If they pull patrols," he said, "pirates will move in within 2 cycles." She did not look at him. "The Council believes pirates avoid conflict zones." "They avoid strong ones," Ethan replied. "That corridor will look weak." A brief silence followed. Siren raised one elegant hand. "My bonded suggests an outcome you have not considered," she said to the room. "If patrols are withdrawn, pirates will see opportunity, not danger." The Korth elder frowned. "Your human presumes much." "He observes patterns," Siren replied. "Do you dispute the logic or only the source?" That question landed harder than any insult. The elder said nothing. Moments later, a compromise was reached. Patrols would remain, redistributed rather than removed. As they exited the chamber, Siren turned to Ethan. "You saw what others did not," she said. "Only because I've seen it before," Ethan replied. "Different names, same behavior." Word spread quickly. By the next cycle, station analysts were quietly reviewing human historical conflicts. Not battles, outcomes, recoveries, adaptations. Some were unsettled by what they found. Ethan's days filled with observation. He sat through meetings, walked corridors, listened to arguments. He spoke rarely, but when he did, Siren listened. Others noticed. A junior aide from a feathered species approached him hesitantly outside a data hub. "You are the human bond," she said. "Yes," Ethan replied. "Is it true you advised against a military response without being asked?" "Yes," she tilted her head. "Why?" "Because it wouldn't work," he said simply. She studied him, then asked, "May I ask how your species survives without dominating others?" Ethan thought for a moment. "We pick our fights," he said, "and we hold on to each other when things break." The aide walked away thoughtful. Not everyone was curious. Some were hostile. A group of station security officers blocked Ethan's path later that cycle. Their leader, a tall reptilian male, bared his teeth slightly. "You are out of your depth, human," he said. "This station is not your home." Ethan met his gaze calmly. "I know." "Then stop acting like you belong." Before Ethan could reply, Siren stepped forward. "He belongs where I place him," she said, her voice cold. "And I have placed him beside me." The officers backed away, unwilling to challenge her authority. Afterward, Ethan exhaled slowly. "I don't want to cause trouble for you," he said. "You are not," Siren replied. "You are revealing it." That night cycle, they shared a quiet meal. Virulent nutrient dishes adapted for human digestion. Simple, mild. "You are changing how others look at me," Siren said. "Good or bad?" Ethan asked. "Both," she answered honestly. "Some see weakness." Others see possibility. She studied him across the table. You do not seek influence, she continued. Yet it gathers around you. Ethan shrugged. I just try to keep people from making things worse. That, she said softly, is influence. An alert sounded before she could say more. A small civilian transport had suffered a systems failure near the station's outer ring. Multiple species aboard, panic spreading, docking control overwhelmed. Security argued over jurisdiction. Ethan watched the feeds. They're going to lose it, he said. Too many voices, no clear lead. Siren looked at him. What would you do? He hesitated. If you allow it, she nodded once. Ethan stepped forward, addressing the mixed control teams. Everyone, he said, voice steady, pick one channel. One speaker per team. Follow the simplest instructions first. Some ignored him, some did not. He kept talking. Calm, clear, no blame, no rank. Slowly, chaos thinned into order. The transport docked safely. No cheers followed, no official thanks. But several operators glanced at Ethan with new respect. Later, as they stood again at the viewport, Siren spoke quietly. You took the position you claimed, she said. Ethan looked at the stars. Just doing the job. She considered him for a long moment. The galaxy believes power must be taken, she said. You show it can be carried. Far beyond Halcyon Station, observers took note. The human had not raised a weapon, had not claimed command. Yet already things were shifting. And many wondered what would happen when the galaxy finally pushed back harder than words. Tension did not arrive loudly. It settled into Halcyon Station like fine dust, unseen at first, then impossible to ignore. Meetings grew shorter. Conversations stopped when Ethan entered a room. Security patrols doubled near council chambers. Messages that once arrived openly now came through sealed channels. Siren noticed before anyone said it aloud. They are preparing something, she said as they walked through a quiet corridor near the diplomatic ring. Ethan nodded. When people stop arguing in public, they're planning in private. She glanced at him. Is that human experience? It's experience, he replied. Humans just had a lot of practice. The challenge came during a full council session, broadcast across the station and beyond. Attendance was mandatory. Absence would be seen as weakness. The chamber was full, more than usual. Observers packed the upper tiers. Even species with no direct interest in the bond had come to watch. Ethan stood beside Siren as always, not behind, not ahead. A tall figure stepped into the center ring. Ambassador Kelt of the Dravek hegemony. His species was old, powerful, and proud. His armor gleamed, ceremonial but heavy enough to remind everyone of Dravek's strength. Honored Council, Kelt said, his voice amplified and sharp. We are here to address an imbalance. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Virelian conquered has bound itself to a species barely entered into galactic relevance, Kelt continued. A species without fleet strength, without territory worth note, without the biology to compete. Eyes turned toward Ethan. This bond, Kelt said, grants influence to weakness. Siren did not move. Ethan felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. Every instinct told him to speak. He did not. Therefore, Kelt said, the Dravek formally challenged the legitimacy of this bond under council law. Silence followed, heavy, dangerous. Siren stepped forward. On what grounds? She asked. On the grounds, Kelt replied, that the human cannot fulfill a valid position within a bonded pair of influence. He advises without authority. He commands without strength. He stands where he has no right. The words were precise, calculated. Ethan understood the trap. If he spoke, he would be accused of overreach. If Siren defended him alone, they would call her compromised. Siren turned slightly toward Ethan. Do you wish to speak? She asked quietly. He met her gaze. He saw trust there, not expectation, trust. Yes, he said. He stepped forward into the center ring. The chamber reacted instantly. Some leaned forward, others recoiled. A few smiled, expecting humiliation. Ethan did not raise his voice. I won't argue strength, he said. You're right, humans aren't the strongest here. A ripple of surprise. I won't argue territory either, or fleets, he continued. We're still building, still learning. Kelt's lips curled. Then you admit, but you're wrong about position, Ethan said calmly. The interruption drew gasps. In my species, Ethan continued, position isn't about standing above others, it's about responsibility. He gestured slowly around the chamber. Every crisis we've faced here on Halcyon Station, he said, came from the same place. Everyone waited for someone stronger to act. A few delegates shifted uncomfortably. I don't command fleets, Ethan said. I don't issue orders. I look at what's breaking and ask who's going to hold it together. He looked directly at Kelt. That's my position, he said. If that disqualifies me, then you're not afraid of weakness, you're afraid of being needed. The chamber exploded into noise, protests, shouts, demands for order. Kelt's eyes burned. Careful, human. I am, Ethan replied. That's the point. Siren raised her hand. The chamber quieted. The challenge has been heard, she said, and answered, Kelt snarled. By words, by truth, she replied, which often frightens those who rely on force. The council recessed under tension. No ruling was given. That alone was a message. Later, in the quiet of their private suite, Siren stood motionless near the viewport. You placed yourself in danger, she said. So did you, Ethan replied. She turned to him. The Dravek do not forget insults. I didn't insult them, Ethan said. I named something. She studied him, then gave a small nod. That is worse. The pressure increased after that, trade delays, subtle restrictions, invitations that excluded Siren unless she came alone. One message was very clear, separate or suffer consequences. Ethan read it in silence. They're testing you, he said, to see if you'll protect me by pushing me away. And you, Siren asked. I think they're testing us, he replied. The real crisis struck without warning. A neutral habitat ring lost power. Life support failed. Thousands of civilians trapped. Multiple species, including Dravek citizens. Security forces argued jurisdiction again. Dravek commanders demanded control. Others refused. Time bled away. Ethan watched the feeds, jaw tight. They're going to lose the ring, he said. Pride S in the way. Siren looked at him. If you act, they will accuse you of interference. If I don't, Ethan said, people die. She stepped closer. Then act. Ethan accessed an open channel. This is Ethan Cross, he said. Human delegate, I'm not taking command. I'm asking for cooperation. The Dravek commander cut in. You have no authority. Then ignore me later, Ethan said. But listen now. He outlined a plan, simple, shared responsibilities, no single leader. Everyone contributes what they do best. Silence followed. Then one channel reopened. Proceed, a Dravek voice said stiffly. The plan worked. Power restored. Lives saved. Afterward, the same Dravek commander avoided Ethan's gaze. The council reconvened. This time, Kelt did not speak. Another elder rose instead. The challenge is withdrawn, the elder said reluctantly. The bond stands. No applause followed, but something else changed. As they left the chamber, Siren spoke softly. They tried to break us, she said. And failed, Ethan replied. She stopped walking. No, she said. They learned. She looked at him, luminous markings steady and bright. You chose a position that forces others to reveal themselves, she said. The galaxy does not know yet whether to fear that. Ethan exhaled. Neither do I. Far away, beyond Halcyon Station, fleets adjusted their courses. Because when power could no longer predict behavior, uncertainty became dangerous. And humanity had just made the galaxy uncertain. The calm on Halcyon Station was fragile, held together by the careful motions of those who understood its value. But calm was never meant to last when humans were involved. Ethan and Siren had returned from the council, their bond stronger than any whispers could break. Yet the galaxy had begun testing them in new ways. A transport alert lit up the station's monitoring grids. A civilian convoy had gone off course, heading into a sector known for sudden gravitational shifts and rogue debris. Officials argued over who would respond. Some wanted to wait for military clearance. Others insisted the convoy could survive without interference. The debate spiraled dangerously, consuming precious minutes. Ethan studied the feeds. His human instincts told him what the council could not admit. The convoy would not make it without immediate action. "They're going to crash if we don't do something," he said, his voice calm but urgent. Siren, standing beside him, tilted her head. "You will act," she stated, not as a question but as permission. "I will," Ethan replied, but he didn't step forward immediately. He paused, considering the chaos in the channels. "We need one channel, one set of instructions, one lead for each ship. Too many voices will fail them." Siren's luminous markings flickered. "You choose clarity over authority," she noted. "Yes," he said. "And it will save lives." The two of them coordinated with the operators, not as commander and subordinate, but as partners. Ethan suggested, the humans and Virelians executed. Alien officers with pride too great to yield were persuaded to follow his simple, logical plan. In minutes, chaos became organized motion. The convoy was guided safely to docking rings. Not a single life was lost. When it was over, the station buzzed with quiet disbelief. Delegates, council observers, and security officers alike acknowledged the result with subtle nods. They did not celebrate, but they recognized competence. Later, Siren led Ethan to the private suite. He expected rest, perhaps a word of thanks. Instead, she waited silently at the viewport, stars reflected in her eyes. "You are changing perception," she said softly. Ethan leaned against the railing. "I'm just keeping people alive." "No," Siren said, her tone firm. "You are showing them another way, one that frightens them, one they cannot control with power or intimidation." Ethan considered that. The galaxy had grown used to certain rules. Strength dominates, cunning manipulates, fleets intimidate. Humans played by a different logic. They survived by standing where others would falter. Days passed. Each day brought new challenges: trade disputes, system failures, minor conflicts along neutral zones. Every time, Ethan observed, listened, and intervened where simple reasoning could prevent disaster. Some species mocked him in private. The Dravaks snickered behind closed doors. They whispered that a human's ideas could never hold against true power. But as problems continued to resolve efficiently under Ethan's guidance, even critics began to reconsider. Siren noticed the subtle shift. Delegates who had once doubted her judgment now asked quietly what her human partner would recommend. Observers who had prepared to document scandal instead recorded efficiency and problem-solving. One evening, a junior officer from the Korth delegation approached Ethan. He was nervous, rubbing a rough-scaled hand over his chest. "Sir," he began, careful with the human honorific, "your methods, they work more than ours. May I observe you?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Of course. Watch and ask questions." The officer nodded and left, a rare spark of respect in his eyes. That night, as artificial night cloaked the station, Siren and Ethan shared a quiet meal. No conversation about politics this time. They ate nutrient blends designed for both species, savoring a rare calm. "You do not seek recognition," Siren observed, breaking the silence. "No," Ethan said. "I care about results, not credit." "That is rare," she said. "Many would choose visibility, position, dominance. Yet you choose something subtler, more dangerous." "Dangerous?" he asked. "Yes," she replied, "because the galaxy does not understand it, and when the galaxy does not understand, it often tests you harshly." Ethan nodded, finishing his portion in silence. He was used to tests, though not always so public. Humans survived by seeing patterns others missed, by making choices that no one expected, by standing where others feared. The following cycle, a station-wide system failure occurred. Gravity regulators malfunctioned in one ring, threatening civilian habitats and research labs. Panic spread quickly. Delegates argued over jurisdiction. Security forces hesitated. Fear gripped the station. Ethan watched, calculated, assessed every variable. Siren stood beside him, calm as always. "What will you do?" she asked. "I will coordinate," he said simply. Not command, just a line. He opened communications, selecting one lead for each unit: maintenance teams, security squads, civilian volunteers. Instructions were precise, short, and clear. No one could misinterpret them. Slowly, the chaos diminished. Gravity stabilized. People moved safely. A sense of control returned. Not a single life lost. Afterward, security officers who had doubted him nodded in respect, though they said nothing. Delegates from rival species observed quietly, taking mental notes. Siren smiled faintly at him. "You have done more in one cycle than some councils achieve in years." "I just make sense of things," he said. "No," she corrected him. "You make others see sense. That is leadership. That is influence. That is a position many will never understand until it is too late." Ethan considered that. Perhaps she was right. He had not sought power. He had not sought recognition. Yet the galaxy watched, learned, and adapted to his presence. Later, in their private suite, Siren approached him. Her luminous markings glimmered softly. "Do you realize what you are becoming?" "I'm not sure," Ethan admitted. "I'm just doing what needs to be done." "That," she said, stepping closer, "is exactly why the galaxy will follow you when it cannot follow others." Strength, strategy, courage, they do not always appear where expected, but you carry them quietly, and quietly they are far more dangerous. Ethan exhaled, letting the weight of her words settle. He was not a hero, not in the traditional sense. But his actions were creating ripples across the station, across species, across the fragile balance of interstellar politics. "You make humans impressive," Siren said softly. He laughed lightly. "We're good at standing where others fall." And somewhere beyond the observation ring, fleets, councils, and delegates recalculated. Because when someone stood beside an alien noble not out of fear, not out of ambition, but out of quiet purpose, the galaxy had to reconsider what position truly meant. And that was only the beginning. The station had grown accustomed to the presence of its unusual pair, but that did not mean the galaxy had stopped noticing. Reports came daily, some praising, some questioning, but all aware that something unique was unfolding. Ethan and Siren had spent weeks walking the corridors together, consulting councils, attending diplomatic meetings, and quietly observing crises before they became disasters. The more they acted, the more species began to see that this human was unlike any other. Not stronger, not faster, not older or wiser in years, but something equally important: decisive, calm, and unwavering. The next challenge arrived quietly. A neutral trade convoy traveling along the Halcyon corridor went off course. Sensors detected an unknown gravitational anomaly approaching rapidly. Officials panicked. Orders flew back and forth. Ships were misdirected. Civilian cargo teetered on the brink of destruction. Ethan watched the data streams closely. "They'll collide," he said, calm and precise. "No one is coordinating properly." Siren tilted her head, her eyes reflecting the flickering stars outside the viewport. "You will intervene," she said, her tone gentle yet commanding in its own way. "I will," Ethan replied. "But only in a way that keeps them responsible." He opened secure channels to the convoy, the nearby security units, and the maintenance crews on the outer docking rings. His instructions were concise, clear, and deliberate. He made no claim of authority, but he made sure every team knew which tasks to focus on, when to act, and how to report progress. The operation took hours. Each movement was precise, each decision calculated, and yet it all felt effortless. By the time the anomaly dissipated, every ship had docked safely. No casualties, no damage beyond minor system repairs. When the crisis ended, silence fell over the station. Observers were stunned. Delegates whispered in corners. Even those who had doubted the humans' ability to contribute were forced to recognize the results. Siren placed a hand lightly on Ethan's arm, her luminous markings glimmering softly. "You have proven your position again," she said. Ethan shook his head slightly. "I'm just doing what anyone should do." "No," Siren corrected gently. "You are doing what few dare, acting without fear of judgment, standing where others hesitate. That is why this bond matters." News spread quickly. Other species began to see humans differently. Not as fragile newcomers, not as weak pawns, but as partners capable of insight, courage, and quiet leadership. Reports reached the council chambers, and even some of the previously hostile delegates now spoke with measured respect. The most surprising change, however, came from the Dravak hegemony. Ambassador Kelt, who had once openly challenged the bond, now observed from a distance. His expressions were unreadable, but whispers of grudging acknowledgement began circulating among the council. Siren and Ethan remained unaffected publicly. They continued their work, helping coordinate station operations, assisting in trade disputes, and resolving conflicts where possible. But privately, Siren allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. "You have done more than I anticipated," she admitted one evening as they stood together overlooking the starfield from their suite. "I didn't do it for anyone's anticipation," Ethan replied softly. "I did it because it had to be done." Her markings shifted with a slow pulse of admiration. "Yet the galaxy watches and learns, not just from me but from you." He looked at her, letting the words settle. "And if they don't learn, then we continue," she said, her voice steady. "Together, always together." Weeks passed. The bond that had once seemed symbolic became functional, then influential. Delegates began seeking Ethan's opinion on minor matters first, before escalating to formal council sessions. Trade negotiations were smoother. Security disputes were resolved quickly. Even minor station conflicts that could have escalated into dangerous incidents were handled with efficiency. But the greatest test came when a multi-species research habitat suffered a power failure deep within its sector. Gravity fields were destabilizing, air pressure fluctuating, and thousands of lives were at risk. Panic swept the station. Chaos threatened to overwhelm even the most experienced officers. Ethan assessed the situation calmly. He divided responsibilities efficiently, ensuring each team had a clear task. He communicated with clarity, removing hesitation, and he coordinated across species lines without arrogance or command, relying solely on observation, logic, and quiet persuasion. Siren observed, her expression unreadable to most species but full of recognition and trust. "They will listen to you," she said. "They must," Ethan replied. "Otherwise they fail." Within hours the power was restored, the habitat stabilized, and no lives were lost. Observers from every corner of the council began recording data, taking note of his strategies, his efficiency, and his unusual method of influence without authority. For the first time, the station recognized a new type of power, the humankind, subtle yet unstoppable. It was influence earned through wisdom, courage, and a willingness to act where others hesitated. As the station quieted again, Siren approached Ethan in their private suite. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport. "You were asked once about your position," she said softly, her voice carrying more weight than anyone could measure. "Do you know what it means now?" Ethan considered her question carefully. "I think it means standing where you are needed most," he said. "Not ahead, not behind. Beside someone you trust." Siren's markings shimmered with a steady, soft glow. She reached for his hand, a simple gesture that carried centuries of tradition, recognition, and respect. "Then you have chosen correctly." Ethan smiled faintly. "I never really chose for myself. I chose for us." "Exactly," she said, "and the galaxy sees that, they will remember it." The next day, reports arrived across the station and beyond. News channels and communication networks carried the story. A human had acted decisively, saving lives, stabilizing crises, and earning the respect of multiple species. Analysts noted the unexpected efficiency, and historians began to speculate that humanity's role in galactic politics had shifted forever. Delegates and observers approached the pair more frequently, seeking advice, insight, or simply the calm presence of someone who understood balance, logic, and courage. In a quiet moment that evening, Siren stood beside Ethan at the viewport. "You did not seek dominance," she said. "You did not seek submission. You simply stood where you were needed. That is rare among all species, not just humans." Ethan shook his head slightly. "I just stood beside you." "That is enough," she said softly, turning her gaze to meet his. "Enough to change perception, enough to earn trust, enough to make the galaxy reconsider its rules." Ethan looked out at the stars stretching infinitely beyond the station. He thought of Earth, of humans surviving despite odds, of standing in places where others feared to tread. He understood then that this bond, this position he had chosen, was not just about the two of them. It was a symbol, a quiet statement that even in a galaxy of giants, even in a universe ruled by power and pride, humanity could endure, influence, and rise, not by fighting harder, but by standing firm where it mattered most. Siren placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Do you understand what this means?" she asked. "I think I do," Ethan replied. "It means we've made a place for ourselves, not by claiming it, not by taking it, but by holding it together calmly, clearly, and without fear." She nodded, her markings glowing steadily in approval. "Then the bond is complete in every way that counts." Ethan exhaled, feeling the weight of weeks of decisions, challenges, and quiet victories settle into a calm resolve. "Together," he said. "Together," Siren echoed. And as they stood side by side, overlooking the vast expanse of stars, it became clear to anyone watching, even the farthest fleets, that the human and his alien wife had redefined what it meant to stand beside each other. Not as ruler and subject, not as superior or inferior, but as equals united in trust, courage, and purpose. The galaxy would not forget. Because when one chooses to act where others hesitate, when one stands quietly beside a partner instead of behind or before them, the results are powerful, lasting, and undeniable. And humanity, for the first time in the wider galaxy, had claimed its position, not by force, not by arrogance, but by standing where it mattered most. The stars outside Halcyon Station shone a little brighter that night, as if acknowledging a new chapter, a new era, and a bond that could endure anything. Siren looked at Ethan one last time before they returned to their quarters. "Do you realize," she said, "that in choosing to stand beside me you have made humans respected, feared, and admired across the station?" "I think," Ethan replied with a faint smile, "that all I did was keep people alive. The rest seems to follow." "That," she said, "is why the galaxy will remember your position, and why it will never be the same again." They walked into their quarters together, side by side, not one ahead, not one behind, just as they had chosen. And beyond the station, observers of every species recorded quietly. The human had stood where it mattered most, and in doing so, humanity had earned its place among the stars.